Focus on love. Love what's in focus. Aim for above because the ceiling's bogus. Focus on love. Love what's in focus. Aim for above because the ceiling is bogus. Focus on love. Love what's in focus. Aim for. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Famous Rapper Convos, the show where we introduce independent music artists to people that they should know. Today, we have a very special guest who just turned his camera off, Marty Ray. This is my first time interviewing somebody of Marty Ray's demographic. So excited to get some unique perspectives on this show here. And I'm going to jump right into the first question, which is the question that I ask everybody that comes on the show. And it's this. In about 3 minutes, touching on a few milestones and paths that you took, what's the full story of you as an artist, of how you went from, of how you got to where you are today?
All right, let's see. I was a guy who came out of the womb singing, thought it was what God put me here to do. A bunch of people told me it wasn't. I believed them. I started working normal jobs. Then I decided to start recording myself. When I got a MacBook Pro in 2005, I started recording myself. God showed me my voice. I made a video, went and made an album in Nashville, started handing that album out to people, other established people. B.B. King lifted me up back when I had no fans. Charlie Daniels lifted me up when I had no fans, people like that. So then fast forward, I started making video content, and the rest is history. I'm still living video to video every day.
Cool. That's really interesting. So you've been singing your whole life, but discouraged. And then you made a video, and then you made an album, and now you're living video to video.
That's right.
Cool. So I've seen a bunch of your videos on there. I watched the Ice Ice Baby one, and I watched The Storm. What's your favorite cover that you've done?
I don't really have a favorite cover. Those songs, when I do a cover, it's a song that usually meant something to me when I was growing up, or it means something to me now. And I really only do covers to try to draw people to my originals. And sometimes it works, sometimes it don't. So, but I would say the one that was on YouTube, the most successful cover is Modest Yahoo, One Day, mixed with Bob Marley. But as a whole, through all social medias, the most successful cover that I did was Ice Ice Baby. I actually performed with Vanilla Ice because of that cover. I went to Boca Raton and performed with him. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. The Modest Yahoo one, that's the one that I saw, I think. It has like 10 million views on YouTube.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. And then but the first one I watched had 4 million views, which I think was the Ice Ice Baby one.
No, I think Ice Ice Baby probably has around on YouTube. It's around 6. On Facebook, It's around, 100 plus million. It's crazy on Facebook.
Yeah.
Collectively, because everybody started posting that on Facebook. Bam Margera and World Star Hip Hop, and that's been posted on a lot of pages.
Nice. Cool. So it's January 2021. So looking forward to January 2022, where do you hope to be with your music career? And what are the steps over the next 12 months that you plan on taking? Or what are the milestones you hope to hit?
Well, every year, at the beginning of the year, I always say, well, by the end of this year, I'll have 1 million subscribers on YouTube, 1 million followers on Facebook, and hopefully 100,000 followers on Instagram. That's usually, as far as numbers goes, that's kind of how that sits at the beginning of every year. And but ultimately, it's always up to God. Like I tell people all the time, it's wherever He wants to take me. I'm following that path. But as far as in a year, I better have my podcast making enough money to where I'm not paying out myself as much as I am now. We have a podcast called the Marty Ray Project Chats, and we interview entertainers and such like that. So that's really the main drive right now. I'm still, of course, doing music, but you can't perform. So if you can't perform, I do some live stream concerts, but it's hard to release music, as far as albums. It's hard to release albums when you can't go out and perform them. So We'll see what the future holds. But the podcast is probably right now the main focus.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so you're trying to get, 1 million subscribers on all those channels while also working on your podcast. The podcast is kind of intended to drive people to your music.
No, not at all. Quite the opposite. At this point, I'm using my music and the fans, trying to use the music and the fans that I have there to drive them to the podcast. See, what people don't realize is my actual dream, real dream growing up was, while I did want to be a singer, I wanted to be a songwriter. I wanted more than that. I wanted to be a radio host, have my own talk show. So that's always been the dream on the back burner. So that's ultimately where I would see myself. If God came down and said, "What do you want to do?" I would say, "That's exactly what I want to do. Can you make it happen?" And that's where we'd be. I would always write songs. I'll always write songs and make music videos because I love to do that. And that's a gift he gave me, and I'm going to keep doing it. But in the end, if I have my way, I will be doing a podcast and creating jobs for other people. And we'll all be, but just a bunch of friends making money doing a podcast show,
Yeah, that's the dream. Kind of what I'm doing here as well. So definitely relatable. How different is that podcast from doing a radio show?
Well, I don't know. I've never done a radio show. I just always wanted to. I actually I actually had a podcast in 2007. Before I did anything with music, I had a podcast before people even knew what podcasts were and even cared. I had a podcast back then. It was so hard to get guests on. I had to explain to them what it actually was. And nowadays it's pretty easy. Everybody knows what a podcast is now. But back in 2007, wasn't so easy. But yeah, I even named the show Nash Radio because I wanted people to think it was a radio show so they would come on the show. But yeah, so that was, there's as far as what's different from a radio to a podcast, there's not a lot different that I know of, but I've only ever done a podcast, so I can't tell you.
Yeah, that makes sense. Have you heard of Mark Rebier?
No, who's that?
He's also a YouTuber, and he did something that I found inspiring recently. Like, he goes on YouTube, he does YouTube Live, and then he makes music live, but then he also takes callers on his show. So it's it reminded me a lot of a radio show. Like, he was hosting a radio show on YouTube Live. Have you ever tried something like that before?
No, but I've just started embracing this Clubhouse app, and I'm thinking about, me and my co-host, I'm thinking about starting to do some live, having a live room there when we record, because it's always recorded. Podcasts are recorded beforehand; they're never live. So as far as ours, so I'm thinking about whoever wants to start in a room where they can come in and actually and hear it live. So I'm thinking about doing that. So, but
yeah,
I probably should look into doing Facebook Live, and because I got more fans there.
I think that could be cool, for sure. And I think one thing about Clubhouse is that you're not allowed to record. I think that's one of their rules. So
yeah, no, I'm not going to record it.
Oh, okay.
We're going to be recording our show, is what I'm saying. And then whoever's in that room will be hearing us record our show live.
That makes sense.
Yeah, they won't, but I'm not recording from Clubhouse. No.
Okay.
That would sound like crap anyway.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
But you could have guests on and talk to them. But yeah. But you can also do that separate of Clubhouse and then stream that into Clubhouse. Or you could stream it to YouTube.
Well, essentially, that's what we'll be doing. We'll be having our guest on. We'll be talking to them, and people will just be listening in live. Instead of waiting on so essentially they will be able to hear. We just interviewed Bert Kreischer, but that episode's not released yet. So since it's not released, nobody's going to be able to hear that episode, which is a great episode, until it's released. But if we have that room on Clubhouse, whoever was in there, they got to hear that whole interview live as it went down. You see what I'm saying? That's kind of where I'm trying to go with it.
Yeah. Another a thought that I had was that I could live stream these interviews exclusively to patrons. Do you have a Patreon for your podcast? And have you considered doing exclusive live streams rather than Clubhouse, which is a public live stream kind of?
I have a Patreon for music, but I don't have one for the podcast because it's so hard to build. It's hard to build a Patreon, and then they continue to take more money out of what you get. So I'm actually in talks with a couple of places that don't take as much money, and for both music and the podcast. So we'll see what happens pretty soon. I'm talking to somebody Friday about it, and I don't know. We'll see what happens. But yeah, Patreon seems like it's hard to get people over there. I'll say that.
Yeah, that's definitely true. Okay, cool. So we talked about your story up until now and your goals for the next 12 months. And my question is, like, looking at where you're trying to be 12 months from now, who can help you get there faster?
Who can help me? As in, what do you mean by that?
So either a specific person or a type of person, like, so like say somebody watched this interview and then you describe to them right now, they would be like, oh, that's me. I can help you do that. So like, are there any pieces that you think are missing, or is it more of, you're just executing? Like who could help?
Well, I mean, ultimately, we all only are helped by the fans. That's it. Like if your show will never be anything without fans. Same as my music, same as my podcast. So the people that will help me are fans. But as far as getting the word out, see, my podcast, I'm not trying to push it to my music fans as much right now, because I want to build specific podcast listeners as fans of that show, that people that don't just not people that just come over because they love my music, because that's not what my podcast is about. It's not about my music. It's about other people. So I'm just a host. So I don't really want people to come over thinking that, oh, Marty's going to get on the show and he's going to talk about himself. He's going to talk about his music and all this type of stuff. So I'm trying to hold off until I see how far I can get the fans built up, and then I'll run some ads and do some marketing. So I guess technically the person that could help me would be somebody that knows about marketing a podcast in this current stage. Because back in the day, like I said, when there wasn't many podcasts, it wasn't that hard actually to get Apple to feature you, right? My podcast was on New and Noteworthy just because I released it and I was consistent. Nowadays, Apple could care less. If you're a small timer, they don't care about you. They have nothing to they've gotten what they needed. Same with Spotify. Even though I was one of the ones that was helping them push their podcasting platform, that doesn't mean anything to them now. How many numbers am I getting now for them? So that's kind of how it goes. But anybody that knows how to work those numbers and get those numbers up and market and extend the reach of a podcast, and without just saying, hey, you got 1 million plus fans, that's how you extend your podcast. It's somebody like that would be very helpful. Somebody that has real knowledge about maybe tagging and description and SEO ranking, those type of things. So yeah, okay. It's a long way around to answer your question, but
yeah,
that's the answer. Yeah.
Cool. So just like imagine that 10 million people were about to hear what you're about to say right now. How do they know if they would enjoy your podcast?
Well, if you enjoy learning things about entertainers and laughing a little bit along the way, and I mean entertainers from every spectrum of entertainment. We've had MMA fighters, wrestlers. We had DDP. We've had, of course, many musicians, songwriters, actors. If you enjoy all that, and a lot of people do, and talk and hearing a conversation, essentially being a fly on the wall and getting to laugh a little bit, then you'll enjoy my podcast. Guarantee you.
That sounds great to me. So if I were to look at your podcast, like which episode do you think, should I just base it on the entertainer that I care the most about? Or is there a particular episode that you think if I listen to it right now, I would love it and become a subscriber?
I think that every episode, you don't have to actually, it helps, of course, if you know who the entertainer is or the songwriter is. But if you have a thirst for knowledge of any kind and you like to laugh, you're probably going to enjoy every episode. You know what I mean? Okay. That's kind of how it goes on mine. That's what I want it to do. And I enjoy every episode. And some of the people I don't know. So, you know what I mean? Until that episode.
Oh, nice. And what's the easiest way for me to find it?
Anywhere the podcasts are heard, preferably, of course, Apple, because Apple is the biggest place for podcasts to live right now. So
Well, I
that's
use
it.
YouTube. How could I find it on YouTube?
Well, we do have a channel, but all the episodes aren't posted yet because I just recently started that channel not too long ago. Their channel is called the Marty Ray Project Chats. Just like I know you said, I know you said you saw you saw a clip. That clip was actually an old clip from when I had Vanilla Ice on. That was early in the podcast before I had the channel. So now I have the channel, the Marty Ray Project Chats channel, but I haven't posted all the episodes. But there's a few up there now. But I'm fixing to get all the video because see, video's harder because it has to be edited. The video's got to be edited, and all that type of stuff. So, but we're getting it narrowed down, and I'm going to have a release schedule to where they release every Wednesday as well as the show.
Okay, cool. So yeah, I'll subscribe there. I don't really listen to podcasts anywhere other than YouTube, so I'll also subscribe to the channel. I'll look forward to those posts. And this interview goes on YouTube, and it's pretty simple to editing if you use Zoom. I don't know how you plan on doing it, but like Zoom is nice because it's you and me talking to each other, and then it gets recorded on the cloud, and then it automatically shows my face when I'm talking and your face when you're talking, and then all we have to cut out is just like, I don't know if there's any awkward dead space or whatever, or you can just like leave it in. That part's not even that important on YouTube because a lot of people listen on 2x speed. Or like 1.5 times speed, or they'll just like skip forward. Like YouTube makes it pretty easy to skip forward. So, yeah.
Right on.
All right, Marty Ray, we've been talking for 23 minutes. I'm enjoying it so far. Do you like, how interested are you in talking more about your music versus your podcast? Or
I'm interested in talking about whatever you want to talk about, man. For real. Anything, it don't matter to me.
Okay. So one part of your story that I think is interesting is that you started making music and then you went to Nashville and made an album. So how did you create that album?
I had a buddy that took the leap and moved to Nashville out of so I was born in Memphis, Tennessee, raised in Arkansas. He and I went to high school together. He was a couple of grades below me. His name's CJ Wilder. He's actually a phenomenal musician. And he took the plunge. He went to college, and then college, he wasn't feeling it. And he had a very supportive father. And his dad said, you need to be doing music. You need to get to Nashville. And that's what he did. And he moved to Nashville at a young age and has been here ever since. And he's the one I contacted when I said, I want to make an album. I got some songs I want to record. And he set it all up. And I took the last $3,000 I had, bought my uncle's van, drove to Nashville, slept in the back of the van in a parking lot, recorded 4 songs. I had an album, and I actually released that album in, I think, 2008, but it shows now that it was released in 2015 because I got into a bad little situation with a manager, and he was actually getting all the revenue from the album. I'd never seen a dime of it. And so I told him to take it down, and I re-released it in 2015 when I released my second album, which was Expression Not Perfection. But yeah, no, it was I was taking that album around to different people and big artists that have already been established for years. I was taking it, handing it to them, thinking that was going to get me in the door, and it never got me in the door. But there was a few times along the way that these people did listen, and they lifted my spirits up and kept me going. It was kind of divine God moments, is what I call them, where it was like a push. Keep going, you'll make it. And I still need those same moments to this day, and I get them every now and then. They come, and it makes me keep going in music because it's tough. It's tough to stay. People might look at me and see 1.2 million followers and go, man, it's easy for him now. It's not. It's not easy.
Wow, that's beautiful. So you got $3,000 and you went to Nashville, or you had $3,000 and you spent it on recording this album. So was that like you went to a studio and then you already had the songs written and then you gave them money, you recorded your vocals, and then they turned it into an album and gave it back to you?
No, I mean we just recorded the song. So the songs were already written. Yes, all the songs were written, and then CJ and I would get together, and I would show him kind of how the songs go, and he would chart them out. And then while we're in the studio, they will go down with the drums, the bass, the keys, and the guitar, and then outside of that, I would tell them how, if it was different than the way I heard it in my head, then I would say, hey, I heard this piano kind of doing this or doing that, or I'd like to hear some mandolin here, or some dobro, or, that type of thing. That's kind of how it goes every time I'm in the studio. So the same way. And then I take those files, get them mastered. After they're mastered, then I take and I create the album myself. I have to get the artwork done and things like that. So that's kind of how the process is for me. I thought it was the same for everybody, but maybe it's not. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I found that everybody's process is pretty unique. So I always like hearing about it, how different people do different stuff. I definitely do not go somewhere and then tell someone how the piano should be played. I don't make music like that at all. What I do is I go on YouTube, I download a rap beat, I record my vocals, and then I post it on YouTube.
That's kind of how, I guess that is kind of how a lot of rap is done today. It actually goes that way a lot, I think. My little brother actually made an album. His name's Benjamin Dalla, as a rapper.
Nice.
Yeah. And he has an album, and I helped him. I'm on there too. I helped him get it produced, and I actually did some rapping on there. And
what?
Yes, sir.
Benjamin Dalla. What's the album called?
I think the first album, his solo album. See, the first album he did, I helped him with, and it's called Benjamin Dalla, and it actually says Benjamin Dalla and Marty Ray Project, and it's only on SoundCloud now, I believe, at this point. That first one, but his other one that he released by himself, I believe, is everywhere, and you can get that anywhere there's music.
Nice. All right, cool.
Benjamin
I follow him on SoundCloud. Wait, who is this? Your son?
No, he's really my friend, but he's like a little brother to me. I kind of
a little brother
had a hand in raising him.
Okay, nice. Cool. So I just have a couple of questions that I ask everyone on the show. The question personally, I love listening to albums. I listened to your album, Expression Not Perfection. I love that album. That was great. You have, I really like the style. The song that I liked a lot was The Ranger, I think it's called, or just Ranger.
That's on the that's actually a single from the Mixed Emotions album. So maybe you listen to both of them.
Is it on that album? I thought it was.
It's not on the Expression Not Perfections album, no.
Oh, okay. That song was like 4 minutes long. I wish it was like 8 minutes long. Like if you posted a video on YouTube of like an 8-minute long version, that would be dope. Because I listened to it 2 times and I was like, that was enjoyable.
Man, appreciate that. Yeah, that's an old one. There's every song that you hear of mine, the plan is to do a music video, but it takes money. So
yeah,
that's the only holdback.
Yeah.
But eventually I'll have enough money to where I will literally make, even the old songs, even that first album, I'll make a music video for every single song. That will happen someday.
Did you, when you made the songs, did you have like a music video in mind?
Yeah. Every time I write a song, I have a music video in mind.
Wow. That's awesome.
They don't always come out. That I don't always have the money to achieve that, but I always have a vision in mind, especially songs like Outlaw. I don't know if you heard that or not, but if you hear that, that song was written, essentially, I wrote that. My dad has always been a business owner, and I wrote that song because, he had some trouble with he had an accountant that kind of messed up his taxes, and the IRS came in and they're hounded him right to where now he's broke, and spent his whole life building this empire that now has dwindled to nothing. And that song is kind of an old West version of that story. So it's about a boy growing up seeing the fat cats come and take his daddy's farm and take his daddy's having to sell horses and things like that back to the bank. And while they're in there, these bank robbers come in and they're robbing the bank. And this boy looks up at them while everybody else is on the ground. The boy's standing there watching the bank robbers, and he's actually not upset about it. So then he then becomes a bank robber, but he don't keep the money. He robs the bank and gives the money to all the people that need to pay the bank. That's kind of what the story's about in my head.
And that's about your dad?
No, that's what I was saying. That's why I prefaced it with my dad has had a business my whole life, and I watched the fat cats, what I call them, the big timers. They come, like the government, the IRS, and all these people. They come against small business a lot, and I watched them come against my dad. So I turned that story, instead of just talking about it directly, I turned it into an Old West story. Is what I'm saying, and that's awesome. Where Outlaw came about. Yeah.
Nice. How would you define the term outlaw?
Well, it depends on the context of which you mean it. Could be a bad thing, right? Could be a good thing. Robin Hood was an outlaw, but was he that bad in the spectrum of things? He took from the rich and gave to the poor, or whatever. And I'm not saying all rich people are bad, because they're not. I know many of them, and they're not bad. But there's some that are rich because they take from the poor, and that's how they got rich. And not just take from the poor, but they want to keep their foot on the necks of the poor people. So those type of people, they don't deserve that type of blessing, in my opinion. But I'm not saying I'm not condoning going out and committing violence against people. But when you think about an outlaw like Jesse James and Robin Hood, and even though Robin Hood's not real, but you think about people like that and how they would only steal from people that it wasn't going to hurt them if they took from them. You see what I'm saying? And I'm not condoning stealing at all. I just simply wrote a story about a boy getting back at the elite, essentially. Yeah. That's what he was trying to do in the story.
That makes sense. You know who another
outlaw is? That's what I would like to do. Say what?
Another outlaw is Eminem. You ever heard of Eminem?
Of course.
He's an outlaw. Okay, so Marty Ray, real quick. What are the two most life-changing albums you've ever heard?
Most life-changing? Well, I mean, I would probably say Mahalia Jackson or Shirley Caesar. You probably don't know who those people are, but that's two gospel singers that I grew up listening to. And the other one would probably be a Boyz II Men album, because that's kind of how I grew up. So I think that was the beginning of me kind of wanting to be a singer.
So Shirley Caesar and Boyz II Men. If you could pick one album from each of them, what are those albums?
Well, I'm not good with remembering album names now.
Okay.
I just
Fill This House. I'll just check out those two artists.
Hold My Mule is a song.
Hold My Mule.
Shirley Caesar, that's amazing. And Boyz II Men, my favorite Boyz II Men song is Thank You in Advance. And that one really, the story of that song, it really, really got me. So and that's why that really made me want to write music. It's not like it stopped right there, though. It went on further, and Garth Brooks came along, and when I was 12 years old, and he started writing songs that had stories in them and things. So and then B.B. King, and then Al Green, and it's hard to pick just one album. So
yeah, that makes sense. And my last question is, so based on your perspective and everything you know about the music industry, what would you say is the secret to becoming a famous rapper?
Shoot, a famous rapper? I don't know. I'm not a rapper, not even famous. But the secret to becoming a famous rapper, if you just ask somebody like me from the outside looking in, is pay World Star Hip Hop that $8,000 for that feature. And let them release some of your songs exclusively. If I was a rapper, that's what I would do. That's what I told my little brother to do. He didn't listen. Instead, he spent like $15,000-$20,000 on features. He had NLE Choppa on something, and I guess that guy's pretty known. So I was like, man, I would have took all that money I told him from the start, I said, I would take that money you got and I would pay World Star Hip Hop to post my stuff on Instagram, because you can pay them. Like, you can just pay them and they'll post it. It ain't even got to be that good.
Yeah.
So that's what I would do if it was me.
That's a great one. I feel like that's often overlooked, especially if you have a music video. You need a music video, I think, for that strategy.
Need a music video for any music. Like, you're not gonna. It's gonna be tough nowadays. I know Post Malone made it through SoundCloud, but that's very, very rare. That's rare, man. Even the labels are pushing music by video now. So with that, you won't see an artist release something. If it's a single, it's going to have a music video, it just won't happen. It's unheard of nowadays to not have a music video. So you definitely got to figure out a way to, and music videos are so easy to do for rappers now, because all they do is point and shoot. You're just rapping into the camera. So it's not now, unless there is some very high quality ones. Like, I think Roddy Ricch, he came out with a really nice one, really nice video for man, what's that song? That big song he came out
Box.
with.
I think it's called Box.
The box. Yeah. So that video is amazing. There's still a few out there, but for the most part, these videos ain't nothing but people looking at the camera and rapping and whatever, and that's, just like that. So if anybody can do that, you got an iPhone 12, you got just as good a camera as I got almost. I got a Blackmagic Ursa Mini Pro, and it's comparable just to turn that phone sideways and film a video. So that's you get a video film, use that money, get some money built up, however you make your money, and pay World Star Hip Hop. That would be my advice.
That's great. Yeah, that's perfect. And my last question for you: what's the biggest change that happened in your life after having children?
After having children, well, I stopped being so much of an idiot. That was the biggest change, and stopped taking so many risks as far as being like on a motorcycle and doing wheelies and going to clubs and just all this stupid stuff. So it was definitely a godsend. My children are godsends for sure. They probably saved my life, to be honest with you.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, Marty Ray, I really appreciate you taking the time to talk with me today. And the last thing I'll do is just give you a couple minutes, whatever you want to talk about. If you want to pitch something, people have been watching this video for 40 minutes at this point. So what do you want to tell the listeners out there?
I need all the support and love I can get on every social media you're on. I'm there at Marty Ray Project, and I have a website, martyrayproject.com. You can join the mailing list if you don't want to be trapped and caught up in a corporate algorithm. And other than that, you can go listen to my podcast, the Marty Ray Project Chats, everywhere podcasts are heard. That's about the extent of what I do.
Awesome. And I don't know, you kind of already said you don't have an answer to this question, but the number one song that you would want people to listen to of yours, if 1 billion people heard one of your songs, what song is that? That's already out. If
somebody forced me to choose, and they said, if God said choose one song, I'm gonna force 1 billion people to listen, it would probably be Spirit Song.
Spirit Song.
Yeah, an old song that I wrote back in the day. That would probably be the one I would pick.
Okay, awesome. I'll put a link to Spirit Song right here in the end of the video. And Marty Ray, once again, thank you so much. It was a pleasure talking with you. This podcast will be out in like a month, maybe 6 weeks. And otherwise, I'll stay connected with you on all those social media, and have a nice dinner with your daughters and have a great week.
All right, brother. Hey, God bless you, man.
Thank you. Take care. Focus on love. Love what's in focus. Aim for above because the ceiling's focus. Focus on love. Love what's in focus. Aim for above because the ceiling is bogus. Focus on love. Love what's in focus. Aim for above because the ceiling's bogus. Focus on love. Love what's in focus. Aim for above because the ceiling is bogus. I want to lay down a never-ending road. We never go to